In this latest video, Joe Rogan interviews Bret Weinstein, but starts off by sharing his strangest dream ever. Tall, skinny, alien-like beings, lucid dreaming, the next iteration of humans. A lot's going on. Check it out.
So I was telling you before we get started that I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. The most realistic and most bizarre dream. And it's so hard to try to explain how strange this was. But I was in some weird corridor that looked like a building but was odd. Very strange. And I was encountering these beings that looked like people but very different. They were very thin and they were slightly on the tall side. And they had big heads, like larger than normal with larger than normal eyes. But they looked like people. And they were playful, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and then they joked around, like we were just joking around. It was the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life. And I woke up, and I could not go back. I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I just went to the gym, and I worked out for a couple hours. And I was like, what the fuck was that? But it was very bizarre in that there was communication going on. It was like, God, I want to read into this because I know it's just a dream, but it was like, get comfortable with this.
You should read into it because it's a dream. So it doesn't make it right, but your subconscious is trying to tell you about something, and the fact that it felt very, very important means your subconscious thinks it's very, very important.
I woke up. I mean, I was tired, man. When I went to bed, I was tired. I was falling asleep watching TV. I went to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like beat down. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get some sleep. Because I had a long week, a lot of activities, workouts, this, that, the other. Tired. 3:30 in the morning, after whatever this was, woke me up so much that I just laid in bed for like another hour. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to sleep. I'm up forever. And then I just went and worked out. I worked out, and I was hoping I would be exhausted after I worked out and I'd be able to relax. But it was like a couple hours after that I laid down and I took a nap for an hour before I came here.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did you see a video, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, of some Chinese robots that seem to be across on our side of the uncanny valley, that they walk with a gait that feels very human? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen that. Is that the latest?
I don't know. I've seen it a few times in the last couple of days. It sort of sounded to me like your dream might have been responsive, you know?
These things felt very organic. Whatever this was, it felt like living organic beings that were like us. There was also a water element. It was hard to understand what the water element of it was, but there was some sort of an indication that there was water and that there was a protection from you going out into the water. But if you did go into the water, there's a bunch of predators in the water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was reptile, like crocodile type things that were in the water, and that they had been like feeding them and keeping them calm and like keeping them away. But whatever these beings were in my dream, they were like what humans could eventually be. That's what it felt like. If it didn't feel like a person, but I don't feel like a monkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like that. It was very, very realistic. Like there was communication going on. And I was really freaked out. And they were fucking with me to lighten me up because I was freaked out. They're like, ah. And then they were like this, like, calm down, like, relax. It was so realistic. It was so realistic that when it was over, I wasn't sure what happened. Like, it wasn't like, whoa, what a fucked up dream. It was like, that was different. That was a different one.
Well, I want to explore a couple things here. I think dreams are very interesting.
What do you
and
think dreams
important.
are? Let's start with that.
Sure.
What do you think's going on?
Think about the way your mind works at the level that you understand yourself, right? Your conscious mind is capable of taking an input from your eyes, computing what the dimensions of the room basically are, where the objects are, whether there's a threat somewhere. You know, if you've got something that's of a particular focus, you point the fovea of your eye at it and you get a whole lot higher resolution image. That architecture, you know how crypto made graphics card manufacturers the most important industry all of a sudden?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, well, so the reason NVIDIA is the company that it is, I mean, never mind that there's, you know, likely overvaluation, but the reason that it's ahead of Apple in terms of, you know, its market cap and all is that the dedicated compute power necessary to make compelling visual renderings, to make video on the fly for video games, which was their stock and trade, that kind of compute turns out to be very closely related to what you want if you want to solve these very difficult math problems involved in crypto. So it was a sort of, I think it was a surprise to everybody that being a specialist on this one niche, you know, video games, put you in a position where suddenly this became important for other things. But basic point is, if you think about your mind as having something like a graphics card in it, right? What is that graphics card doing? Well, it's sort of like a graphics card in reverse. It's processing the incoming information so that you can act in real time. You know, when you're fighting, you can understand what your opponent is doing, anticipate their actions, and all of that. That is an amazing piece of hardware, right? It would be stupid not to use it when your eyes are offline, right? When your eyes are closed because your eyes are built for the day and during the night you're going to close them rather than go out and get yourself in trouble in the dark. You've got this amazing processor, and it is capable of running through practice of various kinds. And my hypothesis for what's going on here is that basically you, as a creature with a very complex set of hazards and opportunities in your life, use nighttime when you're not doing productive work to get ahead on challenges that you may face in one way or another. Sometimes those challenges are warnings about, you know, defects, you know, in yourself that might put you in a bad situation. Like if you're, you know, a procrastinator and you're in school, you may, you know, have nightmares about showing up to the exam without having attended class or something that kind of gets you focused. Or they can be other kinds of practice. They can be philosophical practice. You know, they can be, you know, situations in which you might be morally compromised, where you need to go through the experience of being faced with a choice where you really should choose A, but B is very appealing or something. So I would say scenario building, that your mind is running you through little movies that it makes. They're not completely rendered because it would be too expensive and pointless to do so. But the central elements, the important stuff, is there for you to have the experience so that when you do run up against a situation that's analogous, you've practiced it a number of times and you're not starting from scratch. And I would just point out that the strongest indicator of this for me is when I experimented for a while with lucid dreaming. Have you ever done that?
I've only had a couple of lucid dreams, but one where I think I specifically allowed it to happen, because it was after I watched this documentary where this guy was talking about lucid dreams, and he said, in order to know if you're in a dream, every time you walk by a door, hit the side of the door and say, "Am I in a dream?"
Which then very frequently wakes you up. So if you're going to practice lucid dreaming, you have to practice not to wake yourself up as you become cognizant that you're in a dream.
Yeah, I did wake up after I realized I was in a dream, like not long after. Like there was a few moments where I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy because this feels so real. But I just, my hand went through that door, so I know this is not real.
It's not real.
Okay.
So
because the tactile didn't exist.
The feedback isn't right.
And it was instantaneous that I recognized, like, oh, this is like the guy said. Like, do that. Every time you walk through a door, while you're awake, am I in a dream? and then so you'll get to a habit of doing that every time you get to a door, and so that habit will exist in your dream.
Right, and if you keep going down that road, so that you get used to the answer sometimes coming back, oh, this is a dream, right?
Do you have techniques that you use to facilitate?
This is pretty much it.
Okay.
Right? You look for, you can look at a clock, you can look at written text. There are certain things that don't render very well.
Right, written text is what I've heard.
So if you do that, and then you get used to not freaking out when it gets more and more normal for the answer to come back, oh, this is a dream, then you can, at some point, you get control to just not wake up and you stay asleep. And so then you're in this very interesting situation where you can play, you can direct. But here's what I was going to say about the general purpose of dreaming. When I got to that state, and I was there, I don't know, many, many times, I found the following division. I could perfectly control what I did or said. I was unable to affect anything about the world of other people in my dreams, of doors. I couldn't control what was beyond a door if I opened it. So what that told me is that this is built. Why shouldn't I be able to predict what somebody else in my dream says? I'm obviously scripting them too. You would think it would be easy to predict what they say, but I never once got it right, and I tried many times. So what this tells me is that you've got a movie-generating mechanism in your mind, and it has to be shielded from your consciousness in order for it to be useful training. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Okay. Why are you sold on this idea that it's training you for scenarios that you could possibly encounter or moral dilemmas or...
It's not, some of it is scenarios. Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's moral dilemmas. But it's things that your mind finds likely to be relevant and significant.
That I'm going to encounter aliens?
Well, so first of all, I don't know if your aliens strike me as it could be three things, right? Just based on what I know of what you think about. Could be aliens, could be AI, or it could be the DMT spirits that people sometimes talk about.
It didn't seem like the latter, but like I said, it seemed like almost like a person, but not definitely not a person. Like they all had Michael Jackson bodies. You know what I mean? Like they were devoid of testosterone.
Interesting.
And the heads were larger, but not crazy. Not like a gray alien. It was like slightly larger than ours, but smaller chins and larger eyes. It was weird. It was weird because it was not crazy. It wasn't completely alien. It was way closer to us. But as I'm working out, I'm trying to figure out what would that be? Like if I had to imagine or a guess. And I'd be like, I guess it would be like the next version of us.
There it was, folks. Joe Rogan's dream. Part nightmare, part prophecy, part sci-fi romper. Bret Weinstein says dreams could be messages from our future selves. What do you think Joe actually saw? Drop your thoughts below. Have a like, share, and next time we'll do it again. Peace.